Oh my goodness, I was like my eye.
I don't know if there's any point in...
Oh my goodness.
What?
You just have something in my eye. Doing this the whole time. Welcome. You're listening to Nudity, a podcast where we get naked with our feelings while drinking tea. I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Wendy. And on this podcast, we talk about adult life, our adult feelings. Today, we're talking about... Sorry, that was the laziest...
I love it. You really streamlined it.
I didn't want to get into all the other stuff we talk about, okay? If you're interested, you can go look somewhere else. It's the intro for all our other episodes. Today, I'm not feeling it, so...
Consistency out the window.
Yeah, screw it. Today, we're talking about our all-time favorite movies. Which is pretty difficult. Yeah. I would say, like, how we're feeling right now. Mine have been very consistent throughout my life.
Mm-hmm. Because this is very hard, because you could pick a genre, and then I could maybe narrow down from that genre. But of course, it always changes. There's a lot of good movies coming out now. So I based it off of what movies I have nostalgia for, and that I have been able to repeatedly watch.
Yep.
While I respect and love some of the movies that have come out in the past couple of years, and will probably get around to watching again, these ones are a little more earlier in my... probably teenage years, and I could just watch even now, again and again.
Yeah. So basically, I made a very hard topic for Kim. She watches a lot of movies. I usually just fall back onto a lot of nostalgia movies. But first, we need to talk about the teas. Kim said she was feeling a little fruity today.
It smells fruity, but Wendy made concoction, so let's see if I can pick up any hints of notes.
Let me know.
I haven't really tasted mine. Besides burning off all my taste buds.
Interesting. Tell me how you feel.
It's kind of like red Kool-Aid a bit.
Interesting.
Jokes Wendy didn't make.
Hot Kool-Aid. No, it is actually this apple cranberry mix plus a little bit of Just Beat It from David's Tea.
I like that name.
Plus, just, because I felt like it, a splash of electric lemonade, also from David's Tea.
Maybe that's where I was getting the Kool-Aid kind of feeling with lemonade. It's those mixed drinks that you'd have on a summer day.
Maybe. I think this might...
Did you try it?
For that... Did I try that one?
Yeah.
No. Ooh, that looks strong.
It's pretty strong.
It's nice and tart, which is mostly coming from the cranberry apple. And I am having a mix of Pulka Turmeric Gold, which is turmeric, lemon fruit, whole leaf green tea. Tastes like nothing. And
thank goodness you mixed it.
Mixed with that, I also added the electric lemonade from David's Tea. This was just one of the ones in our grab box. So.
Oh.
Yeah, trying to use things up.
Wendy, is clearly bored of just the plain old tea blends you get from a store, and we're trying to get through our tea cupboard, because there's still a lot of tea. However, we have really cut into it, I found. The coffee side has really grown.
Oh, yeah.
And then the tea side's getting a little smaller.
Our roommate's she was always into coffee, but her collection of coffees is growing. It's taking up like half of our hot drinks cupboard.
Yeah.
Are you okay right now?
Just my hair is just... This is why I hate when we can see ourselves. Anyway, so basing it off of what I've seen a number of times, ones that I have some nostalgia for, I picked Moulin Rouge.
Oh, did not see that coming. Okay.
And Pride and Prejudice.
Oh.
The 2005 version, I know everyone gets on me about but that BBC version. Honestly, I've never watched it. I don't want to watch 5 hours of Pride and Prejudice. It's 2 hours, the one I like. It has Keira Knightley. I swear she was actually made to play Elizabeth Bennet. And Wendy will attest to this. That sexual tension between Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet in that
Help me
film.
into the carriage, Darcy. Touch my hand. So scandalous.
Basically, Keira Knightley right beside me. So we'll start with Moulin Rouge. Basically, a very poor writer comes to Paris, and he's invited to the Moulin Rouge in his first night, and he's so looking for love. He wants to write about love, but he's never felt it. He ends up at the Moulin Rouge, and there's a whole he's mistaken for the Duke, and he falls in love with the head courtesan, and the most desired, who is Satine. And they kind of have this star-crossed, lovers-esque relationship. And that's just kind of, you go from there. Mm-hmm. Cool. I probably watched that when I was just into high school.
Mm.
And
that's quite a scandalous movie. I'm surprised that your mom allowed this.
She probably didn't super know. It was my sister Loren's movie. And Loren kind of knew that it was probably, there was parts that were too scandalous for me. So my first few viewings, Loren would skip, I think, 2 parts. So she skipped. Obviously, there's going to be spoilers in this video.
You know what? If you haven't watched Moulin Rouge by now, like, come on, just get it together.
You should.
Don't blame
us. It's good. Were the parts where he's reciting poetry to her, and she's like faking an orgasm.
Yeah.
And then the attempted rape scene is the ones that, Loren kind of fast forwarded over. But man, when I actually finally like decided I don't need to fast forward over those, I was like, oh, this puts a lot of things into context, and I don't know. I obviously love the full movie in general. Many of you who know me know that I love musicals. It's a jukebox musical in the sense that they're using songs that already exist, and they use one of Elton John's. Elephant Love Medley is my go-to shower song, I think.
Okay.
I do both parts. I do both Ewan McGregor's parts and Nicole Kidman's parts. I think it's also just filmed, back then for sure, it's filmed in a very quick edited, interesting way, and there's a lot of surrealism to it because they were probably doing a lot of absinthe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absinthe.
And because it was the Bohemian Revolution. So honestly, I always cry at the ending. They even set you up for it at the very beginning. You know she's dead. You don't know how she dies.
Yep.
But I would watch that, like, not back to back, but every couple of days. And I would still cry at that every single time. And I think just, like, costume.
For context, though, Kim is not an emotional person in real life, but when in shows, in movies, emotional. Like, it is just tears all the time. All of the time.
I wouldn't say I'm not an emotional person in real life. I'm very...
In real life, I am much more emotional than you. My emotions are much more volatile, but when it comes to watching movies and TV shows and sad scenes, you're way more of a crier.
Right. The joke that my mother and one of my sisters has is I have a very tender heart. Mother was always like, Kim, you're such a tender heart. That would literally make me mad and make me cry because we would be doing this or I'd start to cry. She'd be like, oh, you're a tender heart. I hated that because... physically, if I get hit, because I did a lot of sports and stuff, I would never cry at, like, physical pain.
Yep.
But emotionally, that's when it came out. And we have a joke that if my mom just says tender heart 3 times, I instantly
start crying.
Go into tears. So yes, I cry really easily at movies, books, all that stuff. I don't know if there's a lot to say about Moulin Rouge. I mean, you've watched it.
Yep.
What's your impression of it? You're surprised that I really like it.
No, I'm surprised that it made it into this podcast episode, to be honest, because I feel like the movies that I would expect you to list would be more...
technical?
Yeah, like have more technical elements, maybe a bit more sci-fi-y, or maybe something more suspenseful. But Moulin Rouge caught me off guard. That is a very enjoyable movie. I haven't watched it in forever. Maybe we should do that sometime. So I honestly can't remember a whole lot other than there were some rather like scandalous scenes, and overall the movie made me feel sad. Sad. Yeah.
I think they juggle well with the sadness and the comedy.
That's true. Like,
it's very honestly, like hyper surreal.
The first scene where she's doing like the Diamond Dargo's best friend, I think that was like peak comedic moments for me.
Like a Virgin, when Ziedler is trying to distract the Duke and lie again for Satine. But yeah, there's a lot of downer points as well.
For some reason I just remember like the beginning of that movie being very happy and comedic, and then like it just gets sadder and sadder as you go on.
That's true.
So maybe I have to rewatch it.
I rewatched it, but there was a sing-along, soundtrack sing-along happening at the Apollo in Kitchener, and I went with, I think, Loren, maybe someone else. But and it had been a long time since I'd seen it. And, like, obviously, looking back on it, you can be like, oh, as my movie taste have maybe matured or adjusted, I'm like, oh yeah, there's some issues with, like, this and this and this, but I'm no movie critic. I didn't study film, so I'm still just talking out of my butt when I talk about that stuff. But it's still a fun time. The songs are still great. Mm-hmm. And I think I watched it. I think overall I probably watched it at least 20 times. I watched it a lot when I was a kid. There was a point where I was just like watching it. Like the first month I was watching it a lot.
Okay, well, unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to give me a break and you can talk about yours and I can go back to Pride and Prejudice?
Sure. Okay. I think we both have many things to say about Pride and Prejudice. I'm glad that we're picking very different movies. Okay, so I guess I'll list out the two that I want to talk about and go into one of them first. So my top favorites are probably, this is really rough for me. I definitely wanted to pick something from Studio Ghibli. My Neighbor Totoro is probably one of the most, for me, like childhood nostalgia, even though I watch it as an adult. I never watched it when I was younger, but for me it brings back all of those feelings of being very young and having that crazy imagination and experiencing different things as a child. And overall, the movie is just really well done. The second movie that I wanted to get into, Kim, I need help. Which one of the Harry Potters do I choose? I can't decide.
Depends on what kind of feeling you're going for. Because if you pick one, that's literally just you want to see them. It's that feeling you had when you're like, they're making Harry Potter, and they're tiny itty bitty actors like Dan Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and like Emma Watson. They're so tiny, and everyone's so delicate. Second one, to me, I don't like the second book, and I don't like the second movie. But
which we differ. I did enjoy the second book a lot. I did enjoy the second movie, not as much as the book, obviously, but I still did really enjoy it.
And I think, like, I still like number 2, but out of all of them, it's my least favorite.
I think Order of the Phoenix is probably really one of the ones that got me.
But see, I think the first time, yes, I was like, this was a slog. I think she went a little too in-depth on certain things, which you want, but also Harry's really, like, mopey in that one. And that's actually just teenager. Like, I think if you look back on it, I'm like, she captured it pretty well in the sense of how he would be feeling. But to read that, you're like, I get it. Another person's dead in your life. Sucks to be you kind of deal. But watching, and I couldn't picture in my mind a lot of the things she was describing in the Ministry of Magic in particular. So I think the 5th movie really cleared that up and was a little more, I guess, streamlined in the sense of, I can see now where she was going. They cut out a lot of the beginning stuff, which is kind of cool if you're like expanding on the world, but you don't necessarily need it. And so you were able to, I got a good visual of what the Ministry was, and that duel between Voldemort and Dumbledore was a blur in the book to me. I didn't really understand what was happening, but on screen it translates so well. But when I went back to read it, the 5th one again, because I was going through Harry Potter again, I appreciated it more. And so it moved up above second for me. But
interesting. Okay, well, here's the plot twist. I said I really wanted to include Harry Potter. It's not going to make it because I can't pick. I just can't pick. I'm going with The Secret Garden.
That's such a twist.
Okay,
you can't pick one for Harry Potter.
Just hold on, give me a sec. I need to figure out. I can't remember if it's the 1993 one or if it's the other one that I was really into. This is why we always need a plan. But we don't.
So many people like the 3rd Harry Potter book. We could literally just do an episode of talking about Harry Potter.
We could. We really should, actually.
A lot of people, like, I say I like the 7th.
1993. Yes, it was the 1993. Okay. Yep. All right. So, sorry, Harry Potter. Because of my incompetence at making decisions, any decisions surrounding Harry Potter, I'm just going to put that up there as an honorable mention. Kim and I have just decided that we are going to do maybe like a 3-part series on Harry Potter because it is just we have too many feelings.
It's for those views because everyone loves Harry Potter shit.
We're a little late to the game. I don't know if they're still.
Oh no, we're so late to the game. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares, but this is for us, you know. Anyway, Harry Potter movies, honorable mentions, all of them. But the second movie that I want to get into is The Secret Garden, 1993. Have you ever seen that one?
I have. I think I was really young, and the only thing my siblings and I quote from it is, "I'm in the garden."
Oh God,
that's it. That's all.
Honestly, that gave me nightmares when I was younger.
Well, yeah, fair.
Yeah. Okay, so first one that I wanted to talk about, My Neighbor Totoro. I have watched this movie a good like 20 times. I would guess since the first time I watched it, which was not that long ago. I first discovered Studio Ghibli maybe in like university, very, very late, but it's highly addictive. My Neighbor Totoro. I don't know how exactly I'm supposed to say it. I think it's Totoro.
Is like that's confusing. Ghibli or Ghibli, you know?
I think it's Ghibli.
I think it's Ghibli too. It sounds
there's an H, right?
Yeah.
There's an H. Why would you pronounce it G if there's an H right after it?
But the fact that you're like, is it Totoro or what was the other one you said?
Totoro.
The fact that there's maybe 2 pronunciations of it.
I'm gonna call it Totoro.
Good. That's what I was
It's kind of like the gateway drug into Studio Ghibli because in its essence, it's just the most wholesome, like guilt-free, wonderful, happy memories and sensations. All of like the stimuli that you associate with like the countryside and being young and having siblings and like,
having a parent in the hospital.
You know, like having a sick parent, like all of those things they do just so well, and then they incorporate that extra like magic factor. Like the Japanese are very into spirits and gods, quote unquote, being rooted in nature. So basically the premise is this family, 2 daughters and their dad, they move into the countryside to be closer to their mom's hospital. And they move into this old raggedy house that's very close to this gigantic, beautiful, old-ass tree because the dad, like, just got good vibes. He was like, I'm feeling this tree, guys. This looks like a good tree. So that he moves his family there, and it's just about this beautiful, magical adventure that the young girls experience living in this house so close to this tree. They meet this wonderful forest spirit named Totoro, and he's just like this lovable, gigantic, almost penguin shaped, but with like big squirrel ears, with a poofy tail. I don't know how to describe it. Just look it up if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, shame on you. But it's just the most delightful movie with so many little tiny, not quite Easter eggs, but extra details that make it very special, which is why I think the rewatchability is so high. Every time you watch it, you can just concentrate and focus on a different aspect of the movie and really hone into all the details that are there, from the characters' expressions, which they do so well even for like a 2D animated film, to their clothing, to their environment, the food.
Studio Ghibli does a great job with food.
Yeah.
Looks so good.
So good.
I like that you say that My Neighbor Totoro is a gateway into Studio Ghibli. Yet that was not the one you showed me to begin with.
Did I show you Spirited Away? Okay. Yeah. Spirited Away was like the groundbreaking movie that launched Studio Ghibli into North America. So I wanted to start with that one first. I don't know. I feel like I'm like holding on to it as if I'm like, I don't want to share this delicious secret with you.
I've actually seen it though. I won the Apollo in Kitchener. Just plug them all the time. It shows Studio Ghibli movies every once in a while, so I have to go see My Neighbor Totoro. So I've seen it all, and I always find the thing that Studio Ghibli does well is, yes, they can do lighthearted and whimsical, and you know, you're dealing with spirits and stuff, but there's always a deeper message, whether it's environmental. But this one is, there's this sad point of their mom's in the hospital. You don't know if she's coming back. We don't actually find out what she has ever. I don't think. I think you can guess.
It seems like it's tuberculosis.
Okay.
We're not really sure though.
But then like the little girl, I don't remember her name, she wants to go see her mom, and she sets it on her own, and she gets lost. And a good part of the end of the movie is you're just scared. I'm all like, I don't know. I think Studio Ghibli could just have her die. Like, that's not out of the realm of Studio Ghibli, so you're just, like, a little worried, you're a little tense, because obviously like, the little kid's a little bit annoying, because children are very loud.
They're children. Yeah, that's the thing that they do. While it's like every character really has their own flaws, they don't really hold back on making each character lovable and also annoying or hateable. Like, every character is well developed, even for children. Like, there's not that much to go over for character development in children, but they do it so well. Like, for Sasaki, the older sister, she... Like, the whole film, she comes off as, like, very doting on her younger sister, May. She takes such good care of her. But then there's always this pressure, this stress for her that she's basically a replacement mom because their mom is in the hospital. So someone has to play that role for May because their dad is very busy being, like, a professor in this university far away. So she reaches, like, a breaking point because she's under so much stress, and she also needs a mother figure, but that's not present for her. So all of these, like... If you haven't seen the movie, just go watch it. Take it nice, real, and slow. Pay attention to the details. One thing that I would like to point out, and this is spoilers, so if you haven't seen it...
Most of what I said was a spoiler, and we already said...
Just big, fat spoiler alert.
We'll just put it in the description.
Yeah. But in the movie, do you remember at one point the old granny finds a little... girl sandal in the lake around their village, and she's freaking out because she thinks it's May's sandal, and she has Sasuke like run back from wherever she's at, also looking for May.
The cardio on Sasuke is insane.
Oh my god, that girl did like a good 5 miles that night, like nonstop
and quickly. Yes,
yeah, very quickly. I mean, young kids, they're so energetic. That's true. But before Sasuke gives you the answer, because like up until that point you're kind of like, is it Mei's shoe? Did she just like accidentally toss it in there, or is she actually in the lake? Like, you don't know.
Did she drown? Yeah.
Yeah, but if you actually paid attention earlier in the movie, the animators, the shoes that they drew for Mei were very, very detailed. And you could, if you had been paying attention, like if you rewatched it...
You would have known right away.
You would have known that it was not Mei's sandal because
they went similar, like...
Yeah.
Basic look, but the detail was...
It was very similar. It's just like a kid's sandal. So like how much variation can there be? But you would know if you had rewatched those like previous scenes and had seen Mei running around in her sandals. So it's just like very small things like that. They're all over the place. They're just everywhere, and it's beautifully done and lovely. And I think just the childhood wonder and everything that you wish was real in this movie. Like, big, fat, fluffy, giant forest spirit that comes to your aid whenever you need help.
A cat bus.
A flying cat bus, which is the wind. Like, it had mice for headlights. The headlights on the cat bus are mice. It's wild. Or maybe rats. I think maybe rats. Like, the whole movie is just beautifully done, and I could go on forever about it, but we're going to run out of time. So I think it's back to you with Pride and Prejudice.
Which we'll both talk about. And actually, this is why you should go first, because I didn't give a brief synopsis of Moulin Rouge, which we'll do, and then you can move it. Now, we're going to talk about Pride and Prejudice. If you don't know Pride and Prejudice, all of these,
it's P&P.
It's P&P.
How do you not know?
There have been... This book, for one, is, if you're going to start reading Jane Austen, you start with that one. Because, I'm not going to lie, I love reading Jane Austen, but the middle of all her books becomes a little bit of a slog. So, sometimes knowing the storyline helps, because you know, like, okay, it's coming up. What you want is coming up. But this thing is such a classic. It has been redone a number of times. One, the 2000, I don't know, maybe 1900, no. 1990. What was the BBC version?
I can't remember what year that was. Just gonna... See, this is why...
We do research
we always gotta... Oh my god, Pride and Prejudice and zombies?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, while you look that up, So the BBC version was obviously a miniseries, and people love it. They say it's very loyal to the book.
British Broadcasting Company.
And the British usually do TV really well, and usually best.
This was, oh, dang! It was 1995. The BBC was 1995. And then our PNP was 2005. Yeah.
And they've also done like a mini web series called The Lizzie Bennet Diaries. Which
that was also...
I do recommend. And they have done Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Mm-hmm. Which is a fun take, but certainly not my favorite.
No.
By any stretch.
Mm-hmm.
So, what to say about Pride and Prejudice? One, I have to... Again, I'm not an expert on it, but the cinematography in that movie... Even that opening shot, I was talking with my mom, and my mom, who doesn't watch a lot of movies, she also really loves this movie, and she recognizes that opening scene just captivates you and really shows you, like, their poor-ish life and how they all live in one house, and it's just a panning shot, like, through the windows and up the stairs, and it's...
Also, I have to add to that, the score of that entire movie... Fan-freaking-tastic. It is to die for amazing. So the score plus that initial shot, it just draws you right in. Like, if you were already a Jane Austen fan, it, like, makes you want to... It just crushes your soul a little bit in the best way. This is the essence of everything you wanted anything Jane Austen to be. It's beautiful.
I think they got the right people in every aspect of it. Like, yeah, that cinematography matched with the score, it just...
It kills you.
It kills you. And honestly, the casting for that, like Jane Bennet, perfect. Elizabeth Bennet, perfect. Her two annoying sisters.
Jane and Elizabeth, just like you could feel, like in the books, you could tell they were the closest sisters. Like they shared their feelings with each other, their thoughts. They were so bonded.
So that was gonna happen.
Yeah, so bonded. And like you could really feel that in the movie. Like you could see how much Lizzie loved Jane and how Jane was just that reserved kind of personality. Everything was just top notch. Top notch.
And the mother?
Oh, so friggin' annoying. It was perfect.
She nailed what the mother is. And even Donald Sutherland.
Dad?
Yeah, the dad. You can tell, like...
Hunger Games.
You can tell he's just very concerned about his daughters not being thrown on the street when he dies, and he knows that could be at any point.
Yep.
And you also know that, like, Elizabeth is his favorite.
Oh, yeah.
That is so apparent.
I wish they had done a little bit more of that in the movies. I know they did already quite enough when Elizabeth refused to marry their stupid-ass cousin who's going to inherit everything.
Also,
when the dad was
another great actor.
Don't marry him. Yeah. That's going to be trash for you. You're way above him. And also the end when Darcy does come to ask for her hand in marriage, and he was just so moved when she was like, I love him! And they were just like both like hands to the mouth crying. I'm tearing up. It's too beautiful. Like his love for Lizzie, you can really tell they also share a very special relationship. And it's just so well done. Yeah,
because
the dad.
He knows Elizabeth is so smart and she's there for greater things. Not just to be married away. Not that he thought of that of any of his children, but probably with Lydia, he's a little like, what could we hope for? If we just talk about Stanage Edge shot where Elizabeth is looking out into, I think she just rejected Darcy for the first time.
I can't remember when that was.
But
you visited that spot.
So I am super lucky, and when I went to England and Ireland for the first time, I was kind of planning the what do we do every day kind of thing, and I started with, well, what movies have been filmed over there? And I was like, oh, perfect,
Pride and freaking Prejudice.
So we got to go to this beautiful, beautiful place. It's called Stanage Edge. It's just like a rock kind of ledge. It's very high up. You look out, and it's just vast, like farmland, and it's just gorgeous. So I wanted to go there, and we wanted to pretend we were Elizabeth Bennet. And then we also went to Pemberley, which is actually called the Chatsworth House, and so we got to see where Mr. Darcy lives. Went inside, and like the grounds in that place. Oh my goodness, so over the top.
People in Europe and their grounds, man.
Their gardens, and it's just... They have like a mini maze in there and all that stuff. But one of my favorite scenes as well is that first time Darcy confesses his love to Elizabeth Bennet. And if you're actually watching this, like, you don't know the book, you don't know anything, if you're starting from it, I don't think you necessarily catch all the little hints that he likes her. You like the whole hand, like he helps her into the carriage, and then they have a close-up shot of his hand, and he just like
clenches and unclenches it.
Yeah, that could be if you're looking at it from like, yeah, dude hates her, so like he's like, ugh, this.
He's like disgusted.
Yeah, but you can also see that he likes her a little bit, and she's just so like, he's rich. Obviously, the whole theme of the movie is Pride and Prejudice, but she leaves after her cousin does a sermon or whatever in this church. He like runs out into the rain. He finds her and he just confesses his love.
And this is right after she finds out that he basically ruined her sister's entire life and any hopes for like the most happy marriage there could be between her and Bingley. Like, it's just such a crazy moment, because on one side she's having all this like turmoil because she suddenly hates this guy's freaking guts, and then now he like chases after her in the rain and is all like, I love you, I've always loved you despite your shitty ass background, I love you. And she's just like, excuse you, how dare you
insult my family multiple times.
And then to come around and be like, will you marry me? No.
He's utterly crushed. You can tell, but he's like, that's what she wants, that's fine.
I guess
I'll go marry my feeble cousin or something maybe later. Another one of the shots. See, I'm just like, again, the cinematography, the direction, it was just so bang on about drawing out like what suspense they could draw out, but just these moments of what could be seen as emptiness, but they're filled with just so much emotion. Like the ballroom scene where Darcy asks Elizabeth to dance with him, and then she's like,
she just
wait,
like,
what did I just
screw
do?
this guy.
No, but she does. She dances with him.
No, she does, but the entire time they're like kind of snipping at each other. It's a delightful scene.
Delightful.
Yeah, you can tell they're just so well matched in terms of wit and, you know,
neither's a pushover.
Sharpness of tongue. Like, it's just delightful.
But like they start dancing, and then there's a shot where nobody's in the dance room. It's like only those two, and that's just beautiful. And then you're snapped back to reality. Everyone's clapping. So good. There's also she's found out everything. Darcy has delivered the letter.
Yeah, and right before the letter, do you remember that scene where she's like looking in the mirror or she's reflected in a mirror
the times
it's crazy. That shot was crazy.
She doesn't know how to deal with her feelings. I think at this point she's starting to like, I kind of like this guy, but her pride is in the way, and she's like, but no.
And her prejudice. Like, at that point it was full on prejudice, because she was just like, this guy is the literal worst. He ruined everyone's life.
I would think it was more pride, though. I think the prejudice comes in like the beginning where she's like, oh, he's rich, and like there she's very much true. Like,
but, at
guy.
At that point she still didn't know his full backstory. It was like not until the letter got delivered and she read it when she was just like, dang it.
Yes.
And then the pride gets in the way.
It's very, that mirror scene and just the time passage, and he drops the letter and then he leaves, and she like looks, she reads it. Oh my goodness. And then of course where they finally are reunited.
The misty, foggy, the moor, the like
the dawn,
barely peeping out sunlight. Everything's like golden and yellowy and green from the grass and trees. It's just so well done. Her hair is like loose. You can see it's got a like a misty dewy look to it. Oh my god. And he's just walking through the fog like a superhero
because he has a little bit of hope.
Oh my god, it is just the most amazing feeling. That is something I cry about.
So good.
That ending is just
Judi Dench as Miss Catherine the Great or whatever.
Perfect.
Like that scene in like even the lighting. So
yeah,
it's very. I think it's probably all by candlelight. I can't imagine they brought in any external like artificial light. They might have, but the power in that scene and just her standing up to her Miss Catherine. Is it Catherine?
Catherine, yeah, I think so.
Okay, and she's just like that's when you're like, oh. She wants Darcy, and she's finally realized it, but she understands it's probably too late. And then finally, they've put aside their pride and their prejudice. And it is literally, I feel like, you know that whole like trope in romantic comedies or in a lot of things where the characters hate each other, but then they end up falling in love with each other.
This is OG.
OG.
Yeah. OG hate love relationship. It's just so
yeah, they are a perfect match, and it ends obviously them at Pemberley.
Ugh, and that last scene, the Mrs. Darcy, what else did they call each other? I can't remember, but like it's just lovely. They're overlooking this vast estate. They're like in front of the lake that is in front of his house, and just having just the sweetest moment. It's delightful.
Going back to this, has to be one of my favorite movies because I have rewatched it a number of times. It is a movie where I could watch it and then literally I could watch it back to back.
Yep.
I think you felt that, right? You don't really want it to end. And when we were watching Pride and Prejudice and Zombies at the old house, some of the guys started watching, and then I was like, but guys, you don't even understand. Like, the sexual tension, and just that movie, and whatever. We ended up playing it, I think. I don't know if I made them watch the whole thing or if I, like, started at a certain point, but I think I got them a little interested.
No, yeah. No, I think our guy friends are also, like, lovely, sensitive human beings, and I think they are the type to really appreciate that kind of thing as well.
So honestly, if you like period pieces and just gorgeous cinematography and yes, the soundtrack, and honestly, if you're someone who loved the book, and while I know I haven't watched the BBC version, honestly.
I have. Okay. I can talk about it a little bit. I think the BBC version is very well done. There's a reason that it's so
acclaimed,
loved by so many people. However, I think Keira Knightley you're right, she's just the perfect Lizzie Bennet. The description of Lizzie in the books just fits Keira Knightley so well. The BBC version of Lizzie Bennet is, like, for that time, I'm sure it made a lot of sense, but when I read the books, I really picture someone like Lizzie Bennet. So for me, the 2005 version, just everything, the puzzle pieces really fell together really well. BBC version, yes, it was a lot longer. I loved every moment of it. If you haven't seen it, I feel like you should take some time out to just watch it.
I think it's just like, it's 5 hours, and I love the 2005 version so much, and it's
just think of it as another like PMP and Zombies. It's just like a shoot off of the best created PMP thing ever. It was just the same kind of feelings, but it obviously is a much older movie, so some of that cinematography isn't quite there. A lot of the characters are not exactly what I imagine them to be in my mind, but overall it's very, very well done. I will warn you though, the mom in the BBC version is like 5 times worse, this has been something like like what critics have said about the BBC version is that they really overdid the mom. Like, it was not necessary. In that time period, the 2005 version was more than enough to showcase how ridiculous the mom was. Like, she's just a ridiculous person. But the BBC version, like, really pushed it over the edge, and you're like, that lady would not have been invited to anything. Like, no one would have wanted to associate with her if she was like that in that time period. So I think they pushed it a little too far in that aspect, but otherwise still lovely, and I still love watching all of these.
I think one person who comes to mind who I know like loves the BBC version over all other things, actually I think likes the portrayal of the mom, or they were like, she took it to the point where she probably envisioned her to be in the book.
But that's the thing, I feel like given the time period that this book was written, the way it was written was already like very out there.
Extreme, yeah.
It was already very extreme for like an upper-ish middle class woman to be behaving, to be so out there and so outspoken about her wanting her daughters to marry very wealthy gentlemen. Like, that was already
that's a given. Everyone wants to marry wealthy back in that age.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't say it out loud. You know, you're not out there being like, oh, my daughter Jane, the fairest of them all, out there to marry Bingley ASAP. Like, no one does that. But she did, and that's already too far for someone of her social class. So I think the BBC version just made it seem ridiculous even by modern standards, which is for their time just way too much. I think the Keira Knightley 2005 version did it very well. It was like just enough. Most of her crazy was contained within their own household, where she was just really saying,
so like she maybe gets drunk at
no filter, but
Darcy's party.
Yeah, and then everything else was kind of more low-key than what we would expect someone today maybe to act, but already way too far in their time. So yeah, that's my commentary for BBC versus 2005.
Glad you speak to that. And yes, I would recommend the online, it's free to watch, Lizzie Bennet Diaries if you want like a slightly more modern take where they've cut down on how many sisters there are and kind of like focused in and given Lydia Bennet, like she becomes a little more sympathetic in this online version. Yeah. And it's all done blogger style, but they do a very good job of that, and the characters are really good. It's like 100 episodes.
Oh man, we were watching this, I think, live, right? Like, as it was being uploaded, we were like catching up on some episodes, and then we hit a point where they were like, we were waiting every week for them to upload. It was intense, especially when it got to the end. It was too much. It was very stressful.
Waiting, but no, it's a good adaptation if you want a slightly different take on it. Do you have more Studio Ghibli to talk about, or was it?
Oh, that was it. And then my second one was The Secret Garden.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Forgot. Yes, forgot. I did want to say, we're talking animated. One that I loved as a child was The Swan Princess.
Never watched that one.
Because it's not Disney. It's not even DreamWorks. I don't even know the animation company. But it's based loosely on the Swan... What's the ballet?
Swan Lake?
Swan Lake, I think. It's essentially like a lady turns into she's under a spell and she turns into a swan. Blah, blah,
she's an Anamorphous. Or a Maledictus, depending on which franchise you're going for. Oh no, that's the same one. That's the same franchise. Never mind.
Not a Maledictus. Actually, in a way.
Well, say that for the Harry Potter series.
Yeah. I did want to do just a firing off of some of the movies I've really enjoyed in the past few years, because again, this was a very hard choice for me in the sense I had to go in a direction, and so I picked things that I kind of remember from long ago. But Shoplifters is a fantastic movie that came out last year. The Favorite, The Lobster, those are both done by the same director. He's so wild. It's crazy. And The Miseducation of Cameron Post was very, very good. So
interesting.
There's one I saw recently that was pretty good too. I can't remember it, but I can't remember the title. I do remember it. Should we close it out, do you think?
Well, I haven't talked about Secret Garden yet.
You haven't? I thought you talked about Secret Garden.
No, but I'm going to keep it very short and sweet because there's not much for me to say other than I love flowers and I love plants and I love gardens, and this book was one of my absolute favorites growing up. I think I love that like countryside aesthetic. I think that's
what you desired.
Yeah, exactly. And this book has a lot of like, it's also kind of period type of thing, but it also showcases some of the country, poor family life really, really well. And the imagery in the movie, I'm talking about the 1993 version, is just fantastic. They capture like the main character's loneliness, her pettiness, and just how grumpy she is when she first arrives due to lack of love. And you just really see her growth throughout the movie into something that is much more just like a lovely child with a lot more maturity, with a lot more compassion for others. And it still captures like the brattiness of children really well. So I love The Secret Garden for very similar reasons as the Studio Ghibli My Neighbor Totoro, because it captures that childish imagination super, super well. And this one is not an animated film, and I think they did a beautiful job of setting up this garden that is just like honestly a total wreck, and they make it into something so beautiful and such a perfect combination of well kept and like an estate garden and something that is wild and very countryside, and it's just so well done. I wish I could just live in that garden. It's just a lovely movie. It's a very like want to fall asleep to. There's a lot of things to critique about it, but for me it's the nostalgia factor, and because I love the book so much, I transferred a lot of those feelings through to the movie, so it's up there. Also because I just couldn't pick a Harry Potter. That's like the main reason. We'll have to get into that later. I can't decide right now. Okay, that's it. That's all I wanted to say about the Secret Garden.
I honestly thought you already talked about it for some reason. I don't know why.
No, Kim, we went for Moulin Rouge.
I know.
To My Neighbor Totoro, to Pride and Prejudice, and then you were like, "Oh, was there more?" And I was like, "No, but I have Secret Garden." And you're like, "Okay, time to close it out."
I thought you said no. Like my other one had was Secret Garden. I thought you already talked about it. I don't know. We went on so long about Pride and Prejudice, which it deserved.
It really deserves. But I think our talk for today really showcases the ones that we feel strongly about.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Pride and Prejudice. We should make another episode just on that. We should.
Yeah, maybe we'll...
You should watch the BBC version, and then we should have a talk about all of the Pride and Prejudice stuff.
Okay.
Do it.
Do it now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you for listening to this episode of Nudity. I promise this is actually the ending. If you want to find us, you can find us on Instagram at Nudity Podcast. At that. And you can pretty much listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. Just type in Nudity Podcast. And then Wendy does the filmed version on YouTube, and that's also under the same name, Nudity Podcast. She has her little own editing style every once in a while on it. If I make a lot of facial expressions, she loves to point those out.
I love the zoom-ins.
Yes. And then there's an email we don't check, but... Yep. I think that's it. That closes us out.
Yep.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.